Right. Right, so from now on, you'll start to really see that even here in this Unit 3, I'm not going to do every exercise with your particular group, but I'm already managing that to say, okay, I'm doing this exercise with you guys, I'm doing that exercise with the other group. And all of it's obviously going to be on the YouTube channel. So you will have access to it. So for instance, today, I want to do question 3.11 with you. And then I'll do 3.12 with the other group. Okay. If you've looked at your ICE tasks, you'll see that 3.12 is actually one of your ICE activities. I gave you 3. 4, actually. It's more than that. Yeah, it's actually 4. Because I've given you 2B, which is another, I think it's going to be in that ICE task. There you have bank record, you have creditors or debtors record. Then I've given you 3 questions on depreciation, but we've done all of them. Okay, it's really just a thing of, guys, I want you to open up your textbook. I want you to actually apply yourselves and see what are we actually doing, how are we actually going about these depreciation questions. Because as you'll see when we get into Unit 4, which you'll see on Thursday and Friday, because now I'm gonna, after this question, I'm gonna go through the slides with you on Unit 4. If you're not comfortable with depreciation, adjustments is going to be more problems for you. Okay, so I need you guys to be comfortable with Unit 3. So go through that stuff, go through the videos, get cozy with it, and you'll see today when we go through the property, plant, and equipment question, right? And you can turn there now because we're going to go there now. You'll see with this question that you can't do it if your fundamentals with depreciation is terrible. Okay, so yeah, I'm not too sure where last. What was the last exercise we did together? I just want to. 3.7. Okay, 3.7. Okay, so let's just quickly see. I know I've done 3.9, and I've also done 3.10 with the other guys. Yeah, but it's definitely on the YouTube channel, and I'm sure 3.8 as well is there. So take your time to go through that. If we went through 3.7 together, I know 3.8 is much like 3.7, so that's fine. So just make sure you go through 3.9 and 3.10, because they were incorporating when we have to calculate depreciation midway through the year. Okay, just a slight adjustment, okay, that you then just need to incorporate, but then it's easy. It's not too much of a challenge. But anyway, let's get into this question, 3.11, and see what's going on over there. Okay, so you'll probably be playing around with the YouTube channel even more than you did in 1A when it comes to 1. So anyway, 3.11. Under the required, it says prepare the note for the financial statements that shows. Am I recording? Did I hit record? Please tell me I hit record. Okay, I am. Perfect. Right. So it says prepare the note to the financial statements that shows the movements for property, plant, and equipment for the year ended 30 June 2006. Okay, right. So immediately, I'd advise that you then do your timeline. Everybody can see clearly? Oh, good. Okay. Mm-hmm. In my textbook, it's 84. It's on Tobias Dealers. Is that the same? Okay. Right. So let's do this timeline right quick. Okay, so we are doing this for the year ended 30 June. So 30 2006. Okay. All right. That obviously means that our year is beginning on 1 July 05. Okay. Cool. Right. Awesome stuff. Then we can now get into the question. It says the following are some of the balances in the books of Tobias dealers on 30 June 2005. Okay. Right. So these are the balances. Equipment, the value or the cost, let me say the cost of equipment is 80,000. The cost of vehicles is 560. The cost of the furniture is 53,600. Okay. Then they're also giving us the accumulated depreciation for each of those different asset classes. Equipment 24,000. Vehicles 192,000. And then for furniture, the accumulated depreciation is 18,400. Okay, cool. Now, before you go any further, remember we're doing the property, plant, and equipment. Okay. So this is stuff that I've added in. If you look at your typical structure on property, plant, and equipment, you don't have all of this information. And when I say all this information, I'm talking about this stuff in red. So like 30 June 05, and also here in purple. The reason why I've done that is just so that it's a little more clear. And here sometimes they only write carrying value. So the only way you'll know these things is if you've actually practiced it before. So what I want you to do as soon as you see those balances is to immediately come here and say, okay, and say, okay, let me fill in the necessary information in terms of what is my cost for my equipment. And we're going column by column by column, okay? Don't try and do equipment and furniture and then vehicles at the same time. Just focus on one at a time, and then you'll be fine. Okay, I want to go back to this. Yes. Okay, so the cost of our equipment, we said was 80,000, right? Okay. Then what's the accumulated depreciation? 24,000. And can you see where I'm putting this? Remember, this is for 30 June 05. Okay. So that was 24,000. Let me try zoom in just a bit here. Okay. Right. So then what is the carrying value? Remember, what did we say? Carrying value is your cost of the asset minus the accumulated depreciation. So it's 56,000. Thank you very much. Okay. So if you understand how this table is structured, it will be very easy for you. Okay. But you can only understand how it's structured if you play around with it. If you just see it for the first time in the exam, trust me, you just thrown away 30 marks, 25 marks at least, you know. So make sure that you practice it. It's really easy. So then, remember now we're only focusing on equipment, okay? So then we go to the additional information, and it says an office computer was bought on 1 October 2004 for 20,000 and was sold to H, that guy, for 16,000 cash on 1 July 2005. Receipt number 218 was issued. Okay, so we immediately come this side and we say, okay, cool. What does that mean for us? They say they sold it on 1 July 2005. So they sold it on the first day of the financial year. Okay? If I could move this, I would. Because, yeah, that would have made our lives easy. But basically, what they're saying is, let me do it like this. I'm going to get a bit messy, so forgive me for that. So I just want to do this before here so that you can see the timeline of how everything is happening. Okay, let's do this. Yes, we're there. Okay, cool. So here, we bought this thing when? What was the date when we bought it? 1 October. So 1, and this is 10. And that's 2004, if I'm not mistaken, right? Okay. All right, so 1 October 2004 all the way to 1 July 2005. How many months is this, guys? October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. Okay, so that's what? 9 months, right? So here we quickly say, okay, 9 months. Okay, cool. Right. If you look there, if you go further down additional information, you'll see that Tobias Dealers depreciates their assets as follows. Equipment, 33.1/3% per annum on cost. Okay, so fortunately, this is straight line depreciation. We don't need to do reducing balance method. Okay, so obviously now this calculation is going to be 9/12 times 33.1/3. Okay, so let me just do this quickly. Let's do it together. Let me remove that 1/3. So actually, I'm just gonna put this into decimal format now. Sorry, it's getting a bit. So that's 0.33, and I'm just gonna add another. Let's make it six threes. Okay, right. By now, you guys should be able to do this in your calculators. This shouldn't give you any headaches. Okay, then times how much did we buy this thing for? 20,000. Okay. So what's the depreciation on this? 5,000. Rounded off to the nearest rand, right? 5,000. Okay. So that's all the depreciation that we had on this asset that we sold. Okay. Right. So we leave that for now. Okay, cool. We know the depreciation that we had on the asset that we sold. Okay. They've also told us that we sold it for 16,000. So very quickly, just on the side, we know that we bought the asset for 20,000, right? And we know that the depreciation we had for the period that we had this asset, the accumulated depreciation on that asset, was 5,000, right? Because we only had it for 9 months, right? So what is the carrying value of that asset? 15,000, okay? But we sold it for 16. So we made a profit, okay? All right, just on the side. But before we go any further, we can quickly record this. Okay, and then. All right, there we go. All right, so disposals at carrying value. So here, can you see it's disposals at carrying value? It's not disposals at selling price. So what amount are we going to put here on disposals at carrying value? 15,000, okay? We want the carrying value of the asset we disposed of. So 15,000. Okay, dealt with that. Then the next thing that we have to ask ourselves is, okay, what was the depreciation for the year? Okay, but now, so we're doing activity 3.11 in your textbooks. So now we want the depreciation for the year. But can you see this is movements during the year? So we're talking about this current financial year that we are dealing with. So we're talking about from 1 July 2005 all the way to 30 June 2006. Okay. So then we say, okay, we didn't have this asset during that period, but we did have other equipment. Does that make sense? So we then need to say to ourselves, okay, what other equipment did we have? Okay, we know that we had equipment to the value of 56,000. But remember again, this is the balance. If you look in your books, that's on 30 June 2005. When did we sell this computer? It's a computer, right? Yes, office computer. We sold it on 1st of July. So the very next day is when we sold. So can you see, in that 56,000, there is the value of this computer we sold. Does that make sense? So before we can actually calculate the depreciation we have on the assets that we had for this financial year we're interested in, we have to deduct. So we need to say, okay, cool. Ish, I have to go back to this. Okay, no problem. So we say, okay, on 1 July, we say 20,000. This is where I miss my old computer. Just use my pen here. Minus 56. I'm just going to put 56K. Which will then give us 36K. Welcome, welcome. Okay. And fortunately, they said it's on cost, right? All right. And that we know that we have this equipment for the full year. Because that's 1 July all the way until 30 June. Okay. I'm not going to write out the dates. Okay. But I just want to make sure that you follow. So I'm just going to put here 12 over 12. We're doing activity 3.11 in your textbooks. Okay. And then times, again, let's say 0. And then 3. How many threes did we use? 6 threes. Okay. And then, so what is the depreciation that we get on the 12,000? Okay, I hope you guys are writing in a more neater fashion than that of myself. Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. I made a horrible mistake. I don't know where I got this 56,000 from. It's supposed to be 80,000. Can you see the equipment is 80,000, not 56? Sorry about that. Let's do this. Yeah, that 12,000 was looking very unfamiliar to me. So I was wondering where. So 80K. How come none of you corrected me? Why, guys? Why? Don't trust me too much. Teacher can make mistakes. Okay, so what do we get here? 60,000 We get 20, you get 20,000 on the dot. That is more familiar. Okay. So can you see now, in terms of equipment, the depreciation that we had for the financial year that we're looking at from 1 July to 30 June 2006 is then that 20,000 that we just calculated. So we come here and we say depreciation for the year, 20,000. You see that? Now, did we buy any additional equipment? So here under additions at cost, we leave it blank. Okay? Can put a 0 there. Okay? And it's a good thing if you put a 0 there in the exam, because then it shows you actually thought about it. You know that nothing is supposed to be there instead of just leaving it blank. Okay, so and now under movements during the year, we have 35,000. Okay, right. Then we come down to this final section. Can you see? We just focused on equipment. Okay, all right. We come down there and we say, okay, cool. What now is the accumulated depreciation at the end of this financial year? Okay. Now remember, we can't just take this 24,000 and add it to this 20,000. Because remember, accumulated depreciation, we're just saying, okay, what was the depreciation we had before, plus the depreciation we just had, okay? Then we have our new accumulated depreciation. But because, why can't we just take this 24,000 and add it to the 20,000? Oh, the question. Why can't we, isn't accumulated depreciation is basically all the depreciation that we've had on whatever respective asset. So I'm saying, okay, we have this accumulated depreciation at the beginning of our financial year, and we have this depreciation that took place during the financial year. So why can't we just add these two to get the accumulated depreciation at the end of our financial year? Why is that wrong? What happened during the financial year in relation to equipment? We sold something. And there was obviously depreciation that we calculated on that something, right? Remember that 5,000. So in that 24,000, the 5,000 is there. Does that make sense? So we have to remove that. Because remember what happens when we sell an asset? We also remove that accumulated depreciation on the asset we disposed of. Does that make sense? So can you see now how your knowledge on depreciation is now coming into play? So then to calculate this, we're saying this 24,000 minus the 5,000, okay, from the asset that we disposed of, and then plus the 20,000 depreciation that we've had. Okay, so that's 44 minus 5, you then get 39. 39,000 over here. Okay. Right. Then, also when it comes to the cost, we have to ask ourselves, okay, cool. It's looking a bit messy now. We know that the cost of all our equipment is this 80,000. That's the cost, right? Now I know where I was getting the 56,000 from. Okay, so guys, just be careful that you use the right amount. Okay. 80,000 is the total value, but again, can we just take that 80,000 and plug it in there? Can we? We can't. All right? Because again, we sold equipment worth 20,000. So over here, we have equipment based on cost, at least, to the value of 60,000. Okay? That's how much we spent on our equipment so far. So now, what is the carrying value of the equipment that we now have? What is the carrying value? How do we calculate carrying value again? We have cost, right? We have accumulated depreciation, right? So what is it? 28,000. 21,000. Okay. Now, guys, be very careful to make sure that you know that your depreciation and accumulated depreciation are negatives. Also, your disposals are negatives. But when we add an asset, so in other words, additions at cost, that's going to be a positive amount, okay? Because our asset is increasing, okay? Now, can I show you something interesting? If you take the carrying value at the beginning of our financial year, that 56,000, and you minus it from the movements, what do you get? What amount do you get? You get 21,000. Okay. What am I trying to show you? What did we start with? What was the carrying value that we started with our assets? What were the movements? What happened during the year? Okay. Did we sell assets? Did we buy any assets? etc, etc. Okay, that's the total of our movements. Movements minus our carrying value will give us the carrying value at the end. Okay, so I'm just showing you there's different ways that you can arrive at this figure here. Okay. Yeah.
In the event that we actually bought something and sold it. So now you have to add those amounts.
Yes, you'd have to add
56,000 and 35,000.
Let's say, yeah, if this was a positive 35,000. Okay? So, but also, with the addition, now we'll have to look and say, how long did we have this asset? Because there's also depreciation on that new asset. Does it make sense? So, that's where again, your depreciation fundamentals come into play. Okay? Okay. Right. So anyway, let's move on to vehicles. With vehicles, again, they told us that the cost of all our vehicles is 560,000. Okay? And what was the accumulated depreciation on our vehicles? 192,000. Thank you so much. Right. So what then is our carrying value? See, can you see how easy this thing is? If you know how to calculate depreciation. If you don't know how to calculate depreciation, sorry. This is going to be hell for you. Okay? There's only two things that can rob you of these marks. You don't know how to calculate depreciation, and two, you don't know what you're supposed to insert where. That's it. Okay? So, what's our carrying value? 360, sorry, 68. Hey, guys, when are we going to not need to wear these masks? See, I can't wear my glasses. These things. Right, so we've dealt with that. Now, let's look into the additional information in relation to vehicles. Vehicles, they say, a vehicle with the carrying value of 60,000, all right, and accumulated depreciation of 91,400 was sold on credit to O Pula for 55,000 on 1 July 2005. So again, we just want to quickly do our where shall I do this? Okay, I'll just do it here. Okay. So we come here. Okay. This time I'll start. When did we buy this asset? They didn't tell us. Can you see that? They didn't tell us when we bought it. They just told us, though, that we sold it on 1 July 2005, which is the beginning of our financial year. Okay. And we know that the end of our financial year is 30 okay, that's the end of our financial year. Okay, but again, our information that they gave us in terms of the balances was 30 June 2005. So we know that within this 560, the asset that we sold, the vehicle that we sold is included there. We know again in the accumulated depreciation, the vehicle is included there that we sold. Okay, right. Anyhow, so again we go back to the, and we see they say that the carrying value was 60,000. Okay, carrying value, we sold it here, so that means the carrying value at this point is 60,000. Okay, I'm gonna just start saying something K or whatever, you know. Depreciation was dip was how much? 91 400. That I'm gonna have to write out. Okay, and what else do they tell us? We sold it on credit for 55,000. Okay, it's not very important for us because obviously when it comes to the property, plant, and equipment, we don't actually record the sale. Does that make sense? In the property, plant, and equipment, we're just trying to see what was the cost of our value, what is the cost of our assets, whether it's equipment, vehicles, or whatever else. And then we're trying to see, okay, what is the carrying value? What was the depreciation on that? So we're not concerned with the selling price in when it comes to property, plant, and equipment. Now, so they've told us the accumulated depreciation. Cool. They've given us the carrying value. So already, because we know our property, plant, and equipment structure, we know, okay, carrying value is 60,000. So we can plug that in. That's what we disposed of. That's the carrying value of the asset we disposed of. So 60,000, and plug that in there. Happiness. Now, we know that we need to calculate depreciation for the year on all the other vehicles that we had, all right, that we still kept from 1 July all the way until 30, what is this, June. Yeah. So, what must happen? How do we go about this, guys? What must happen? Let's quickly see. How do they calculate depreciation? Here, vehicles at 20% per annum according to the diminishing balance method. Okay. So what must happen? How do we go about this, guys? We know that diminishing balance method we calculated based on carrying value, right? So we have to say cost of the vehicles that we had outside of this one that we just sold, all right, minus the accumulated depreciation on the assets that we had for that whole financial year, all right? Obviously, that means excluding the one we just sold, then times the depreciation rate. So we know that this 560 is inclusive of the asset we sold. So we need to remove that out, right? How do we do that? How do we get accumulated depreciation? Can you see now they're testing your knowledge on depreciation? Because if you don't know how to calculate carrying value, you won't know how to calculate the cost. Okay? Actually, here I should have put an A for accumulated depreciation so that we are aware this is accumulated depreciation. So, like she said, so we have to add these two. Okay, so to get cost, we're just going to quickly can do that. Okay, let me write it in full so people can say, oh, you know exactly what. So you're adding these two together, and what do you get when you add those two together? 60 plus that, 10, 151. Should be 151. Double check for me. 400, right? 400. Okay, so that's the cost. Now that we have the cost, okay, we then say to ourselves, okay, cool. So the cost of all the old, let me actually put that here, old. No, let me not say old. Other vehicles, the ones that we didn't sell. I'll just put other and then put V, okay? So we're saying 560,000. I'm just going to put K there, and then minus this 151, 400. Okay, all right. Now we have the cost of the other vehicles, but then we know we have to minus the accumulated depreciation, okay, for the other vehicles. So again, what do we need to do? We know that if we look at this accumulated depreciation of 192, it includes this asset that we just sold. So again, we need to remove that. So we say 192 K, 1,000, minus what? Minus what? The 91, 400. See, can you see they made it a little bit easier for us in that we didn't have to calculate the depreciation on this vehicle that we sold, right? Because they calculated that for us. Okay. Right. So what then is the total carrying value of the other vehicles? 308,000. Okay. And what now do we need to do? We're on the diminishing balance method, so what must happen now? We times by our depreciation rate, okay? Which is what for the vehicles? 20%, okay, at least. So 0.2. So what do we get? 60,000. 61,600. Okay, 61,600. Okay. Now can you see this 61,600 is the depreciation that took place here during this financial year for the vehicles. Oh my goodness, that was supposed to be an arrow. Okay. Let's see if we can redeem the situation. Okay. That's the depreciation on the vehicles that we kept. Can you see that during this financial year? Okay. All right. So then we just come here to 61,600. Okay, so what's the total? Did we buy any new vehicle? We didn't buy anything new. So we just add these two and we get, obviously there it's going to be 121,600. Okay. So then if we want to find out our movement, our carrying value at 30 June 2006, we can already just say, okay, what is the carrying value at the beginning of our financial year minus the movements, and we'll have our answer over there. Okay? What is the answer over there? And 400? Just like that. Okay. Cool. All right, now obviously we have to finish up the bottom bit there. So we say to ourselves, okay, what was the cost of the vehicles at the end of our financial year? All right, and if we scroll down here, remember we're doing the reducing balance method. So here we actually calculated that. So this 560,000 minus the 151,400, because remember we're removing that vehicle that we disposed of. What do we get? 408. 408, how much?
600.
600. All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. And then we want also now the accumulated depreciation. Again, we can't just add this 192,000 to this 61,600. So we'd have to then say, or we can add them and then we just have to remove the accumulated depreciation of the 91,000 something. I forgot what it was exactly. Is it 91,600? 400, yes. What do we get? So maybe I'll just write it out here just so that everyone can see. I'm saying 192,000, which is our accumulated depreciation at the beginning, then plus the 61, which is the depreciation we had during, but then we want to remove the accumulated depreciation, which is this 91,400 for the asset that we dispose of. Because remember, this is no longer in our books. Whenever we dispose of an asset, it comes out of our books. So what's the answer that we get? 162,200. Is that what I got? Yeah, boy. Okay. Again, let's just quickly double check. Did we do the right thing? Let's deduct this from this and see where we arrive. Do we get the same thing? Do we get the same thing?
So you carrying value.
400. 400. All right. Okay. So can you see it's good to check, to play around with both, to check if you made a mistake. So somewhere, I think when we deducted these, where did we, because how did we get here? We simply said, what was our carrying value at the beginning of the financial year? 1 July. So the carrying value was 368, okay, thousand. And then we said minus the 121,600, which was the movements, right? And that's how we arrived at. But then somehow we just forgot to put the 4 there, okay? But then when we do this, we see, okay, no, definitely something's wrong. So we can then double check to see where we went wrong. Okay. And then fortunately, we figured that out. So at least none of our figures were wrong. We just made a finger error somewhere along the way. Okay. All right. Cool. So then the last one that we have there is then just your furniture. Okay. So let's quickly now. I think we're getting into the rhythm of this. We know that the cost at the beginning of the year was the 53,600. The accumulated depreciation they give us there is 18,400. Okay. Happiness there. And then we look at the additional information. It says office furniture, which was bought on 30 September 2003. Okay, for 24,000 was sold for 3,000 more than the carrying value. Can you see how they're not giving you straight? They're telling you 3,000 more than the carrying value. We know that we need the carrying value, right? So, we're going to have to play around with some figures there. On 1 July 2005, this was a cash sale and receipt number 006 was issued to L. Lang or Lang. Okay, right, let's get into our time. This time I'll do it in red. So we saying that when did we buy this thing? Oh, 30 September. 39. This is 03 though. Okay. And then we know the first financial year after that would then be 30 June. June what? 2004. Okay. And we know we're doing this for 30 June. Oh, whoa, sorry. The next financial is 30 June 2005, but we're doing this for 2006, right? So we're going all the way up until, when did they say we sold this thing? Okay, 1 July. So the very next day, okay, right here, that's when we sold it, okay, but we're doing this for 30 June 06. I'm just going to put a 6 there. Right. Cool. Okay, so guys, yeah, it's fine. All right, so now we have to check these periods here. This is September, so we know that's the end of September, so we're starting October, November, December, okay? Then 6 months, so that's 9. Okay, so this is 9 months here. Okay, then this is obviously a full 12 months. Okay, and we sold it the very next day over here. On 1, remember, I'm just going to do this in a different color. On 1 July. Ah, no, my bad. What am I doing? Sorry. No, I'm actually right. Yes. I'm actually right. 5. Okay. Then, so this here is basically going to be for all the other assets that we have. I can even just put other there. In terms of furniture. Okay. Everybody happy? Right. Awesome stuff. So they say furniture at 16 2/3% on reducing balance method. My goodness. Lots of fun, huh? So we have A and we have B, okay? And then we obviously sold it on 1 July, okay? So we just have those two sections, okay? that we need to calculate. Right. But I think let's just take a break there before we go any further. Yeah. Let's just take a break there. Or do you want to finish this? What do you think? Take a break? I think so too. Cool. So yeah, let's take a quick break and then I'll see you guys at 9.